Hello, everyone. So, over the past 24-hour period, we have gotten a lot of information from Wizards of the Coast. We've gotten a new Unearthed Arcana about clerics and revised species. We've gotten some insights into the survey results for the Character Origins UA. And we've gotten some clarity on the overall design goals of 1D&D. Hi, I'm John from Incendium D&D, and today I just want to share my thoughts about this fire hose of information we've just gotten. There's a lot to get to, so let's get started. So I think the way I want to do this today is to review the content that we got in chronological release order, meaning we're going to be starting with the interview Jeremy Crawford had with Todd Kenrick about the 1D&D survey results and the future of 1D&D. Overall, I think this video really succeeded in two key areas. First, demonstrating how our survey feedback as community members matter to the design future of 1D&D, and also clarifying what the overall design goals are so that when we give survey feedback, we have a little bit more context. In multiple instances over the video, Jeremy Crawford gave examples of how our direct survey feedback changed the design of future things, like Dragonborn and Ardlings, which we got in this latest UA. After seeing the Character Origins UA, to be honest, I was really optimistic about 1D&D's design. That optimism was cut in with some skepticism when I saw the rogue design, but this new UA again kicked up the optimist in me. So to just start off with, one of the things Jeremy Crawford highlighted is the fact that most things in the Character Origins UA had a satisfaction score of 80% or above. And to give that number some meaning, usually if they release a playtest element and it gets at least a 70% satisfaction, the design team reads that as a thumbs up from the community, but something that still needs some work, it still needs some tweaks. If it drops to the 60% range, the idea is salvageable, but it really needs a lot of work. Anything that's pretty much 50% or below, it's probably something that's best left abandoned. And of course, it is very rare we get that, but I remember, I think it was the Psionics Wizard tradition, where the satisfaction scores were so low that that specific implementation was cut, although it did find new life as the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. A lot of things got very high satisfaction scores, including humans, dwarves, orcs, tieflings, elves. First level background feats had an 87% satisfaction. And the only three things that got kind of in the 60s were things that we all expected, like the new D20 test with critical hits, Dragonborns, and Ardlings. More on that later. Really what I want to focus on are first the little insights we got that Jeremy Crawford kind of teased, and I've got a list of them right here. So first, based on how we said it, I'm pretty sure the order of the next UAs are going to be some document that finishes off the priest class group with paladins and druids, then warriors, then mages. He teased a new bastion system for home bases. Ooh, a new one was that he reiterated there are 48 subclasses. But the big news is that there's an even distribution through the 12 core classes. Some people have noticed that in the original 2014 Player's Handbook, there are about 40 subclasses, so there's not a whole lot of new ones if you just go from 40 to 48. But the subclass distribution was all over the place. Barbarians and bards only got 2 choices, but clerics and wizards had 7, 8, or 9. There was just a lot. So it's interesting going into this new edition knowing that clerics are going to have the same number of subclasses as fighters. It's kind of exciting. I'm wondering what they're going to do with it. Another thing he confirmed is that even though Eldritch Blast is not on a spell list, it still is going to exist in the game. We'll just have to see how it's implemented in the Mages UA. Personally, my prediction is that it's going to come back as a Warlock class feature that levels with the Warlock. So you aren't going to do a 2-level dip into Warlock and then multi-class out of it with Sorcerer to quicken stuff. Oh, and something that I'll get into a little bit more later, but I figured is good to mention now. Class lists aren't necessarily going away. One of my big with the Expert Classes UA was how bards could only cast arcane magic, but only specific schools. So you would have to go through the master list of arcane spells and pick out the specific ones that your character could take. I found that just really tedious. And he did say that part of that was just for players to get used to the idea of navigating a bigger spell list, but also that for specific classes like Bard and Ranger, a more curated spell list might make more sense. So we'll see what they do with that in the future. Now, the big part. What are some of 1D&D's design goals? One of them is downplaying quote-unquote Mother May I mechanics. These are mechanics that require a DM's cooperation to work as expected, but are often unsatisfactory because the DM makes an alternative ruling, or it just slows down the game while the DM tries to catch up and figure out something on the fly. Some examples of this include the use an object action, the first level ranger features from the 2014 Player's Handbook, and the wild magic sorcerer. Another tease that's pretty exciting, in the warrior UA, weapons are going to have additional functions or something, and a warrior class's features are going to be its main source for damage dealing. They don't want feats to feel like something that are required for a character build. Of course, there'll still be some min-max routes or optimization builds, but ideally feats are used to accentuate a part of a character, not be necessary for it to do its job right, as is often discussed with Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter. So it's nice to see that that philosophy of feats is going to lead to what I believe is going to be a healthier game overall. And the last thing is that the system should be as friction-free as possible. So to reiterate, while the design team wanted playtesters to get used to using a master spell list, he recognized that it is tedious for a bard player to have to like sift through all these spell lists and pick out the specific schools of magic they can use. So because of that, they'll probably have either a suggested list or a curated bard list that makes it easy to build a bard character. I really think that this was a super helpful video to give us a little bit more insight to the 1D&D design process, and I highly recommend checking that video out. In fact, we'll link all these new 1D&D videos in the description below. But the biggest thing I can say, the surveys are worth filling out. They are having an impact on the design of 1D&D. And so, if you have particular feelings about the direction of the game, or even small things about like clarifying certain language, please make your voice heard. It'll only lead to a better game. So that brings us to the actual new Unearthed Arcana. So I'm going to transfer right over to that now. So after the mild disappointment that was the Bard and Rogue in the Expert Classes UA, how does the Cleric make out? One thing I do like about this new format is that they link it to their YouTube channel here, because I do think that something that might be missing from a lot of people that would playtest or at least review this document is hearing the context of the design from the lead designer himself. This is just like a business thing, but I do like here how they specifically point out, hey, do you know it would be a great adventure to playtest this material? Buy Candlekeep Mysteries or Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. Highly agree. Both of those books are some of my favorite. I love those anthology ones. So something I think is interesting for a new multi-classing rule is that each class has a primary ability score, and to multi-class, you do have to have at least a 13 just in that primary ability score. I can't remember if the Ranger had more than one. It still might have, but I'm not gonna open it up. I gotta keep on going. We got things to do. So looking at the Cleric, the first thing you will probably notice is that a lot of its class features got shuffled around. Cleric subclasses are now chosen at level 3 instead of level 1. There are a few reasons for this. One is, and I actually agree with this, you should get to know the vanilla version of a class before you have to make a specialization decision. And it also prevents some multi-classing shenanigans. I definitely know I've done builds where I take a level of Cleric to get heavy armor training. Now, I will say I've read all this ahead of time. I love this new Cleric progression. This is what I mean by I have some optimism again. Whereas when they messed around with the level progression of Rogue features, it felt like the Rogue got weakened. The Cleric feels just like a much more solid, streamlined design. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it more powerful, although I do feel it is a little more powerful. It just feels right for the cinematic vision of the class. So as we go down, the armor training as usual, light, medium shields. Now, right off the bat, we're taking a look at how Channel Divinity got moved from level 2 to level 1, and man, do I like this change. So first, the channel divinities no longer recharge on short rests. You get a proficiency bonus number of uses per long rest. Gotta say that till I'm blue in the face. And in addition to turn undead, we do get an additional use of it, which is the divine spark. And I've seen some comments already online that this feels much more like what the original D&D cleric did, where they could both kind of harm and heal with the same well of magic. So first, it's a number of d8s equal to proficiency bonus. As an action, a magic action, it's a ranged heal or harm. So instead of an attack roll, it's a constitution save, and on a fail, they take radiant damage or half on a success. And I really like this divine spark thing. I like how it kind of meshes with, say, healing word. So you can say, as an action, I divine spark and heal someone, but then healing word and heal a different person. Again, this just feels like a streamlined action economy that gets better as you get more levels in the class. And I already liked Cleric, but I will say, it's nice to see that the Cleric doesn't really get dead levels until like level 13 and 15, but it's because you're getting your 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells at those levels. So you're getting something pretty big. I am digging this new, like, clean action economy. Turn undead, you're using the magic action. I don't know, there's something about it I really like. And I can't remember, is Dazed a new condition? It might have been in the expert classes UA, but yeah, I do like how it calls out a new condition that gets added to the system. And really, it's just forcing things to move away. Along with the expert classes UA, it goes along with the whole, like, the spells you have prepared equal your spell slots. So if you're a 4th level cleric, you get 4 first level slots and 3 second level. You get 4 first level spells, 3 second level. Blech. I'm not a real big fan of this design. I do think it's easier to understand. And I do like being able to have, say, like, only 2 first level spells, but have a lot of ammo for them, but have more options with my higher level slots, or vice versa. Now, one of the changes I love is Holy Order. Similar to how Warlocks had a Pact boon, where it's like a second point of customization, this is like a Cleric's Pact boon. You really get to match your Cleric's specialty with a subclass in a unique way. And Jeremy Crawford talked about in his explanation video on the D&D YouTube channel that certain players liked mixing and matching subclasses with different things. So, for example, like, rather than having, I don't know, an order domain cleric have proficiency in heavy armor and martial weapons, what would it be like if that cleric instead more leaned into their spellcasting? This is something I've always been interested in with my clerics, and I've usually asked my DMs, can I swap out this ability for like an equal proficiency from another subclass? Not for power or anything, but just to kind of have a more focused character concept. And this is one of the ways that you do it. So your choices are, you can either gain martial weapon proficiency and heavy armor training. I really like this one, the Scholar, where you get to pick some of these, cleric skills, Arcana, History, Nature, Persuasion, Religion, but add your Wisdom modifier to the roll. It's always bothered me how, like, some characters aren't good at things that they should be good at because of the match of ability score with proficiency bonus. So, like, a lot of clerics will only have, like, a +2 or a +3 religion score at a low level. But, like, if you stat your rogue the same way, that rogue could have, like, a +6. That's always really bothered me. I love seeing this specific fix to it. And then Thaumaturge, you're leaning into spell casting type of stuff. You prepare an extra level 0 spell, which some of them have gotten a little different. And you also gain an expended use of Channel Divinity on a short rest. Again, not super duper powerful, but that's an interesting choice to make. Do I want to be a little bit more survivable? Do I want to be a little more flexible? Do I want to have certain skills that are going to accentuate my character's story? As expected, level 5 is Smite Undead. When you use Turn Undead, you also get to deal damage to them. Blessed Strikes is also kind of like the Holy Order, where again, there were some subclasses that would give you extra damage on weapon attacks, and others that would boost your spellcasting. This had kind of like a soft patch as a variant feature in Tasha's Cauldron, and like many of the variant features in Tasha's Cauldron, I like seeing it applied to the class chassis. And then, again, this is a demonstration of a change to a Mother May I mechanic. divine intervention, where as an action, you can do the percentile die thing. If you're able to get within whatever the percentage is, the DM chooses the nature of the intervention, but the effect of any divine spell is appropriate. To be honest, the way I would rule this, I'd put this in the player's hands, where it's like you're using an action as a literal Hail Mary, and I would let them pick which effect they want. Do they get Holy Aura? Do they get Mass Heal? It's definitely better than, hey, DM, make up something. And it's got an interesting cooldown period if it succeeds. I don't know if that's different from the Player's Handbook version, but it's kind of neat. And again, 20th level Epic Boon. They sure haven't received my survey feedback for expert classes yet. The other thing I really like is getting into the life subclass. It is largely untouched. There are some clarifications, like, this is gonna make some people very sad, sorry Pack Tactics, that Disciple of Life no longer works on good berries. So it's like, I've always found that to be kind of a cheesy mechanic to begin with. But even looking at its prepared spells, if you wanna be a white mage, and you're like, Cleric lets me be a white mage, this is the subclass to pick. To be honest, I've never really been interested in the life subclass. According to Jeremy Crawford, it's gotten very high satisfaction ratings over the years. And I do think that actually that Channel Divinity, the Divine Spark, I think that actually adds enough to the action economy. I would be super cool playing a cleric like this, especially knowing that the Holy Order is now a separate choice than being packaged in with my subclass. Overall, I have yet to see from the smarter optimizers in the community if this is a more powerful cleric or not, but from my experience in D&D, I give this an overall thumbs up. Along with the expert class's ranger, this is what I would like to see in the game. So on to character species. You'll notice that they are called species now. D&D Beyond released a blog post talking about why the change to the word species. If I'm gonna be perfectly honest, it's fine. From the discourse I've seen online, there are a lot of people that are like very passionately embracing this change, and I've not seen a good argument against it. So, character species, that's the term I'm going to be using from now on. Now first, if you've been listening to this channel for any amount of time, you probably know how I feel about the Ardling, which is, at the time of this recording, our most successful video we've ever done. One of my main criticisms for Ardling is I felt like they were doing too much. As an extra planar character, I also felt it's not necessarily appropriate for every setting. So overall, I think I like the fact that they're more leaning into that this is a generic beast folk template than some kind of weird Aasimar cousin. Some of the flavor is still there, but flavor is free and flavor is way easier to work with than mechanics that are hard-coded into the game system. I'm actually going to go in backwards order of how the content is presented. Proficiency and perception makes sense for kind of like an animal person. Thaumaturgy, I know it's flavored as a divine spell, but honestly, I've got like 8 dogs. And the way they howl, the way they bark, the way they thaumaturge is way more than me as a human does. Me as a human do? Me as a human... I can't make those noises. Now, these are some interesting ideas here, like maybe your Ardling is a climber, or a flyer, or a racer, or a swimmer. The one thing I'll say is I like this design better. I can see myself allowing this design more. This design still is not more compelling than some of the beast folk that we already have. I really like Tabaxi. And not because it's a more powerful option, although that has a little to do with it, but also just because I feel like its mechanics specifically evoke cat folk, rather than just being like, cats are climbers or racers. And I do think if your goal is to make a generic beast folk, this is a great place to start. For me, it's bumped up to that, all right, I can get on board, but I think you got a little more to do with it. Especially since the other two options have these like 5th level traits that make them like super powerful as you get higher in level. I would actually like to see something like that from the Ardling. So you start with one of these ancestries, but as you get higher in level, like maybe the Tabaxi has like a better jump or something like that. I don't know. Moving on to the Dragonborn. All right. So one of the questions I had, why not use the Fizzbands Dragonborn? To be honest, I've heard Jeremy Crawford's explanation twice. I still don't know why. But at least he gave us back the Fizzband's Dragon Breath. So when you take the attack action, you can replace one of your attacks with an exhalation of magical energy. You can pick your AoE though, 15-foot cone or 30-foot line. That is really cool. And basically the package is, at first level, you're getting dark vision, damage resistance, AoE. That is a good kit. On top of that, at 5th level, you get temporary flight. I wouldn't even make them spectral wings. I'd make them gross, shoot the fluids from the back, dragon wings. But, of course, flavor is free. But yeah, this Dragonborn, thumbs up. There's not like a whole lot here, and it is concise, it is compelling. I'm into it. Moving on to Goliaths. I get what Wizards is trying to do with Goliath. I've always liked Goliath as stone folk, but the way that they've said it is kind of like how tieflings are assumed to be tied to Asmodeus, but in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, rest in peace, that book had like a whole bunch of tiefling lineages. They're trying something different with the Goliath, where depending on the specific giant ancestry, a Goliath gets kind of like a bonus thing. So these are proficiency bonus number of times per long rest. But first, this, which I think is the best one, bonus action Misty Step, basically. And, or with the Fire Giant one, you can deal additional damage. The Frost Giant one is you can deal a little bit of cold damage and reduce a target's speed. The Hill Giant one is you can knock a target prone. That's pretty nice. Honestly, the Stone's Endurance, I know it's powerful and it's kind of boring. You just reduce damage that you take. And then the Storm's Thunder, which is, as a reaction, you can deal 1d8 thunder damage from a creature that hit you. So it's kind of like a rebuke. I do like the change to Powerful Build, where it gives you advantage on saving throws against being grappled, in addition to the double carry weight thing. And lastly, like I said earlier, it also gets a 5th level bonus action, where it can grow large for 10 minutes. That's pretty neat. Overall, I do know that WotC has been trying to do stuff with giants for a while, and I do find it interesting that the Goliath is being integrated as one of like the core player's handbook races. So last thing, I'm gonna try to like whip through this part real quick. One thing I really appreciate is that they gave us a changelog of glossary terms. This rules glossary is gonna get bigger and bigger as we go, and it becomes more and more painful to try to pick out what little things have changed with it. So I'm probably gonna miss some stuff, but overall, I like the changes. So first we get a change to aid. Rather than the 5-point max HP boost, it's now temp HP, and it can affect up to 6 creatures. Honestly, I think this just makes things less confusing. I don't know if it's a power decrease or if it's a power boost. Honestly, I would still be cool if you still only targeted 3 creatures, but it gave out temp HP. The max HP thing is, it's technically more powerful than temp HP, but I don't know. So something was changed with equipping weapons. You can equip or unequip one weapon before or after each attack you make as part of this action, even if the attack is with an unarmed strike. Is that new? I just thought that's how it worked. I'm not sure what changed with banishment. It says it was changed. Is it that it's only 30 feet? Hey, someone smarter than me, comment below what changed with banishment. And again, is dazed a new condition? It might be, I can't remember. I do think I can see what changed with guidance. So I think that the way guidance had worked was that you could only like give someone guidance once a long rest, but now it's just a reaction and that creature can roll a d4, add the number rolled to the check, potentially turning it into a success. And they can only be within 10 feet. Oh, I think the other guidance was like a lot longer of a range. I don't know. Guidance is abusable again. That's what I got out of this. All right, grappled was supposed to be changed to, it's probably the escape. While grappled, you can make a dex or strength save against the grappler's escape DC at the end of each of your turns. It says grappled changed. What changed? Yeah, there's, again, something changed with influence. I can't tell. Maybe it was the interaction part. Oh, maybe it's because the DC for the check now has to do with the character's intelligence score. That could be it. Take a drink each time John can't find out what changed in the rules glossary. I think the thing that changed is when you do the additional attack with the light weapon in your offhand, you don't add your strength or dex mod to the damage roll of the second weapon. Whereas it used to be you would add a negative modifier to it. I don't know. I thought that was also changed in the other UA. I know it changed in long rests though. It says after you finish a long rest, you must wait at least 16 hours before starting another one. Ooh, spicy. That's to get rid of long rest spamming. I think there are other ways to do that. Like, one of the ones I really love is, like, you set safe zones where you can only take a long rest if the DM determines it's, like, a safe zone, like a town or something. But I think this is another way to do it, too. Yeah, so there's a magic action. It's supposed to have changed. I don't know. Oh, Prayer of Healing was an interesting one. My players tend not to use Prayer of Healing, because it sucks. But now the way it works is that you basically, when you cast it, your party gets to short rest inside of 10 minutes. Kind of like the Catnap spell, but I feel like Catnap was too high a level to really be useful. But also, in addition to the short rest benefits, they get 2d8 hit points. So you may be able to heal allies that don't need hit dice, but if they do need to use their hit dice, they can. I think it's neat. I think it'll get more use if you're ruling short rests as an hour long. But it's not amazing. It doesn't wow me. Do you know what does wow me is resistance. Basically the guidance for saving throws. That is awesome, especially for like, tier 1 play. Yeah, that made resistance, relevant. Spiritual Weapon was supposed to have changed too, when you cast the spell using a spell slot of 3rd level or higher. Oh, the damage bump is more consistent. Spiritual Weapon was like one of, if not the only spell I've ever encountered, where if you use a higher level spell slot, it doesn't always mean you get a better spell. So with most spells, let's say Burning Hands. All right, use a 1st level slot, 3d6 fire damage. I would never do this, but 2nd level slot, 4d6 fire damage. And it's another d6 for every spell slot you boost it by. Spiritual Weapon is a 2nd level spell, but it would only get a damage boost on like even level spell slots. So you would have to skip to a 4th level spell slot in order for it to do 2d8 force damage. So apparently they changed it so that it has like a regular damage curve. That's gonna make Spiritual Weapon way good, by the way. Before I realized that that's how you were supposed to do it, I definitely played in a campaign with Ian, and I was like, Spiritual Weapon at 3rd level, and that little d8 bump did a lot. So now I can see, Spiritual Weapon at 5th level, 5d8 extra force damage every turn as my bonus action. Oh, it also is concentration now. Wow, me opening my big mouth, which now means I can't abuse Spiritual Weapon the way that I used to. Still, I think that there's been plenty of times as a cleric where I've definitely been like, Spiritual Weapon can use my concentration. I'm not doing anything else too special. In fact, I have Divine Spark, so I can bonus action Spiritual Weapon and still have my action free to heal. All right, True Sight, I think, is just better. It clarifies that you can see in normal and magical darkness. Basically, you can see everything. And I'm pretty sure that's it for the changelog. So overall, I am really into this new Unearthed Arcana. Really happy with the direction 1D&D is going. Ardling isn't there quite yet for me, but it is leagues better than what we had gotten in Character Origins. Because of that, I'm really hoping they're going to fix up the Bard and the Rogue in a similar way. Because so far, they're batting like a 50-50 average. Like Ranger, Cleric, super good. Rogue, Bard, disappointing. But because they've demonstrated they're taking our feedback into account, I don't know, you've restored my faith. That was a Cleric joke. Well, now I want to know what all of you have to think. Comment your thoughts on the new UA in the comments down below. And have an awesome day, everybody. Bye-bye now.